What's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, with some breaking news. The Las Vegas Raiders have signed safety Terrell Edmunds and are moving on from wide receiver Seth Williams. My name is Mitchell Renz. You're watching the Raiders Report, and anytime that big-time Raiders news happens, I'm going to get you guys a video. So coming up here on today's show, I'm going to tell you who exactly Terrell Edmunds is. Now, if you subscribe to the show, you'll know that I talked about him last week as being a potential player that the Raiders could sign. We'll just kind of break down everything there is to know around him. And then also, we'll be talking about why I think ultimately the Raiders ended up making this move. And then at the back end of today's show, I'll also just slap in some of the biggest notes from Raiders training camp practice today. So let's first talk about what the Raiders just released, and they released it on social media. And they said, Edmunds, an 8-year veteran safety, has played in 101 career games, 79 starts, over 7 NFL seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which he played from 2018 to 2022. And then he went back with Pittsburgh in 2024, played with the Eagles in 2023, the Titans in 2023, the Jags in 2024. He was also on the Chargers practice squad last season, which I actually don't think that the Raiders even mentioned that in their press release. He owns 451 tackles, 308 over his career. Edmunds has also started in 2 postseason contests, both with the Steelers, totaling 12 tackles and 1 tackle for loss and 1 PBU. Now, this is going to be one of those players at 6'1", 217 pounds. Initially came into the league as a first-round pick. He was number 28 overall with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And initially, when I saw the news that just came in today, I thought of 2 things. First off, the Raiders tried out Edmunds earlier last week. I don't know if you guys remember. They brought in 3 players. They brought in Terrell Edmunds. They brought in Mekhi Becton. They brought in Mekhi Gardner, who's, again, like a cornerback, good athlete type of player. And then they also brought in another special teams guy by the name of B.J. Mays. Out of all the names on that list, I did think that Edmunds was the top player. And I think ultimately you bring Edmunds in for, yes, the extra competition factor, but I think you're also bringing him in because his skill set, I think it's very similar to a player like Lonnie Johnson. And Pete Carroll said a few days ago that they expect to get Johnson back in week 4, week 5. Maybe it takes a little bit longer. I think the reason why Pete kind of gave you that deadline is they're going to put him on the IR, and then he's got 4 weeks to be able to get back. So I think by going out and getting a guy like Edmunds, I think that just helps you add another player into that secondary, helps add some versatility because Edmunds is somebody that, teams have valued as like a strong safety box type of linebacker player, and the Raiders obviously have a big interest with these types of players. But then also there has to be some sort of coaching connection, and I always go back and I think of, all right, well, what could be the coaching connection here for Terrell Edmunds? So before I get into what I believe the ultimate reason was for the Raiders doing this and the coaching connection, I'm somebody that wants to ask a question. So I want to know down below, what is your one-word reaction to the Raiders going out and signing Terrell Edmunds? My answer is going to be coming up right here after this YouTube ad break. Help. And my one word is help. And I think that the Raiders know that they need some help right now on defense. Quite frankly, if it was up to me, I would be going out and adding a lot more players to this defense. And, we're pretty thin right now at defensive tackle. We're pretty thin right now in that secondary. And I think the Raiders just know that we need some extra bodies for what's going to be a very competitive week. And the Raiders are going up against the 49ers on Saturday. I will be live for that game. So make sure you pull up, make sure you're subscribed. But I think also the Raiders, with joint practice being this week and the fact that, you're going to go up against the 49ers, I think you're going to see a physical week. And for a player like Terrell Edmunds, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get somebody who is a good athlete. He's not nearly the athlete that he was many years ago when he was drafted in the first round by Pittsburgh, but he is somebody that is going to help you out in that secondary, and he's somebody that's going to be, again, going to be an extra body to add a little bit of extra competition to. So, again, the corresponding move was they waived injured wide receiver Seth Williams, and the Raiders right now, I think, are very confident in their wide receiver room, so I'm not really going to look into that move all that much. I think this is more about adding a Lonnie Johnson Jr. type of replacement and being able to add some extra bodies there to that secondary overall, which our secondary needs a lot of help, and Terrell Edmunds has been a player that at least has, gotten some run, only 2 starts or 4 starts over the past 2 seasons, but has been somebody that, when asked to do the job, he's done an okay job. So like last season, for example, According to PFF, 69 snaps played. I know it's not a lot of snaps played. A 71.6 overall PFF grade, 72.3 run defense grade, a 68.4 coverage grade. The year before that in 2023, a 63.0 overall grade, a 70.2 run defense grade, a 60.3 coverage grade. In 2022, a 69.1 overall grade. So again, you're getting a player that when his name has been called, he's done a good job. And I think if there's one thing that this Raiders defense needs, and quite frankly, what this Raiders team needs right now, is they need a player that when his name is called, they go out there and they do the job well. So I'm hoping that he's able to do that. Now, I did hint at why I think ultimately this deal ended up going down, and you're going to hear some familiar names because I talked about them a lot when the Raiders traded for Thomas Booker during the Jakorian Bennett trade. But the name I'm going to throw out there is Brandon Hunt. And sometimes when you see moves like this, you got to just sit back and go, all right, well, what's the reasoning behind this move? And I'm not saying that Brandon Hunt's the reason, but I do know that this team values coaching connections, and I know that this is going to be a team that values relationships. So Brandon Hunt, for those who don't know, he's right now with the Las Vegas Raiders, vice president, player personnel, and he's somebody that came on over from the Philadelphia Eagles, where, again, somebody like Terrell Edmunds did recently play with Philadelphia. So that's going to be something that I note here. But what I really want to look at is where Edmunds got drafted. And Edmunds had a lot of time with the Pittsburgh Steelers early on in that organization. And Hunt comes from the Pittsburgh organization. And to me, I'm always somebody that likes to learn from some of the good GMs in the NFL. I think Howie Roseman's one of the best to do it. I also think Omar Khan is one of the best to do it. So prior to his arrival in Philadelphia, Hunt spent 12 seasons from 2010 to 2021 as the pro scouting coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. In that role, he was responsible for scouting opponents and evaluating pro players. Now, again, he's looking at other players, but what I know is when you're drafted in the first round, the organization's going to kind of buy into that. So I almost wonder if Hunt and his experience with Pittsburgh there, and that's when, Edmunds was playing at his high. Like, Edmunds' best was early on with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I almost wonder if they're like, all right, you know what? We saw a little bit of a resurgence here with Jamal Adams, who, by the way, I think he's going to end up starting this year. I don't know where he's going to start, but I believe Jamal Adams is going to end up starting one of the I think he's one of our 11 best defenders right now based on what I've been hearing from training camp, based on what I saw at the Raiders mock game, based on what I saw from the Raiders preseason game and the notes that I received today. It sounds like Jamal Adams is working his way into being a starter for the Silver and Black, and I almost wonder if they feel the exact same thing for a player along the lines of Terrell Edmunds. Now, before I get on out of here, I do want to say this. I'm going to give you guys some Raiders training camp practice news and notes today. I do want to give you an opportunity, though. One of my friends and a loyal Raiders Report watcher, he is going to be having dinner tomorrow with Mark Davis, John Spytek, and Pete Carroll. I actually have a phone call with him coming up here in a few hours. Him and I are going to discuss what questions we are going to ask them. But I'm going to ask y'all, if there's a question to ask the Raiders owner, the Raiders GM, and the Raiders head coach, what would it be? Let me know down below. I'm going to see what the best answers are. Him and I are going to kind of like weigh some of these options. And from what I understand, we're allowed to ask a few questions. I don't want it to get overboard, obviously, but he did say that he's going to be able to ask them some questions. Again, it's him and those three. They're going out to a nice fancy dinner. Quite frankly, I wish I was able to go as well. Appreciate you. You know who you are. Thank you for everything that you always do for the show. All right, let's get into my top notes here. And I already put it out on social media at Mitchell Renz 365, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want to find it. But my top notes from training camp practice today, JPJ, he is dealing with a rib issue, though it's nothing major, at least that's what Pete Carroll is saying. Alex Kappa also dealing with a rib issue, though it doesn't seem like it's all too long-term, though Kappa has missed a week straight. And I said yesterday on the show that I did wonder if the reason why JPJ continues to get put at right guard is because of the Alex Kappa injury. I'm kind of thinking that that is the case. Filling in for them today, Antonio Mafi, he played right guard today with the first team. Jared Hufford got some work with the number twos. Again, I think that's just because we got some guys that are banged up there on that offensive line. Adam Butler did not practice today and did not practice yesterday. He's dealing with a personal matter, so that's why he wasn't there. Raiders defensive tackle Tonka Hemingway did take some first-team reps on the defensive line. They've been doing defensive end, defensive tackle reps with him, and I kind of like the way that they're using him right now. Tank Booker, He was getting some first-team reps today at nose tackle. He's just gigantic. And I think due to some of the struggles that you saw from some of the guys like John Ulalu this past week, Booker is somebody that they're, I think, just using as a big body on that interior with Leki Fotu, who is still in that walking boot, and he did not practice today, which is a little bit of a cause of concern for me. So with Adam Butler not practicing today and Leki Fotu not being out there, John Ulalu struggles. I think that's why you saw Tonka and Tank Booker getting some of those actions in. Max Crosby, I heard, threw some punches today at practice. Heard there was a little bit of a scuffle. 98 wasn't taking any shit. One of the notes I have, Jamal Adams, he's going to be a starter on this team, was taking some first-team reps. Heard there was a good practice today from Carter Runyon, the Raiders UDFA tight end. He wears number 46. And then Tommy Malott, heard he also had himself a solid practice. So again, just wanted to be able to get you guys a quick little video here. Alex and I, we are in cleaning mode. I've literally been cleaning all day. She's been cleaning all day. And I just saw this news come in, so hopefully you guys understand. A little bit of a quicker video, just trying to get you guys a little bit of an update here on what the Raiders are doing. It's what my job here is at the Raiders Report, at Chat Sports. But at the end of the day, I also know people are going to be asking questions because we talked about Terrell Edmunds last week with his visit with the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, appreciate all y'all tuning in. I am going to be dropping some videos tomorrow, and on Tuesday, I will be live 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific here on the Raiders Report. Appreciate you tuning in. Terrell Edmunds, welcome to the nation. I'm excited to see what you bring to the table for this week. If you're looking for even more videos around the silver and black, make sure you click that subscribe button right here. I promise you, I always got you up to date. If you're looking for even more videos, YouTube's going to recommend this one for you. Also, a recommended video based on some of the other things that you've seen on YouTube are going to be these two shows. So please go check them out. If you enjoyed today's show, remember, hit that sub button.